Welcome, gentle mind, to a quiet sanctuary beneath the stars, a corner of the universe where curiosity and comfort share the same soft glow. Tonight, let yourself settle into this shared space, wherever you are and however you feel. Whether the world outside is rushing or resting, here you can simply be, with no need to remember every word or solve every riddle. The invitation is simple. Relax your shoulders, slow your breath, and let your mind find its own gentle rhythm. As you listen, you are not alone. This moment belongs to you, free of hurry, full of possibility. How is your heart tonight? Perhaps you're tuning in from your favorite chair, or listening quietly as the city settles around you. Maybe the weight of the day lingers, or your mind is already stretching out, ready to wander through unfamiliar territory. Whatever the case, tonight is not about being perfect or productive. Tonight is about exploring, safely, the mysteries that flicker behind your eyes when the lights are low and the noise of the world falls away. Here, we blend the art of personal growth with the vastness of the quantum universe, a place where the smallest motions ripple through everything and every thought contains galaxies of possibility. In this space, you're invited to notice without judgment, to question without needing to answer, to reflect without fear. Let the words meet you where you are. You are encouraged to rest, to wonder, and to know that you don't need to figure it all out right now. This isn't a test, and there's nothing to memorize. There's only curiosity, gently blooming, patiently waiting. Our focus tonight is a curious puzzle. The midnight loop, that familiar pattern when darkness falls and your mind becomes a hall of infinite mirrors. Perhaps you know the sensation well. The urge to solve, to fix, to control every stray thought as it spins, gleaming, across the surface of your mind. Maybe you feel yourself tracing the same lines, again and again, searching for an exit that never quite appears. Sleep hovers just beyond reach, a promise that always dissolves when you get close. But beneath this everyday struggle lies a question, a disturbance, a glitch in reality so subtle and so strange it almost goes unnoticed. Every night, as you close your eyes and hope for peace, your mind transforms. It becomes an infinite mirror. You look and look, seeking your own reflection. But what if it isn't you in the glass at all? What if something else is watching, waiting, just beyond the shimmer of your awareness? Tonight, together, we enter the machine. Not to fix, not to win, but to witness. You will see what's been watching you. You will discover the patterns that have shaped your nights and frozen your progress. This is not a journey of comfort. It is not a soothing story. It is an honest, unblinking exploration of the questions that haunt you when the world is quietest. This series is for anyone who has ever found themselves awake long after the world should be asleep. For those whose thoughts multiply in the darkness, who long to find the pause button on a brain that refuses to slow down. Here, we use the strangeness of the quantum world as both metaphor and map. We'll uncover the subtle traps that keep you circling the same questions, the paradoxes that freeze progress, and the mysteries that linger at the edges of sleep. You'll discover how your most familiar tools, your intelligence, your focus, your deep desire to find answers, can transform, in the dark, into the very things that hold you captive. We'll explore how overthinking mirrors the infamous quantum Zeno effect, a bizarre law from the smallest scales of reality. The more you watch, the more you freeze, until motion itself is locked in place. In this quantum prison, progress stalls. Relief hovers just out of reach. It isn't comfort you'll find here, but the raw, electric charge of genuine curiosity. Each chapter is built on questions that unsettle, not on answers that reassure. You will face the midnight contradictions. The harder you try to sleep, the further sleep runs. The more you focus, the less you achieve. Every solution births another problem. Every reflection multiplies into new distortions. The brain, like the quantum world, is full of paradoxes that don't resolve but instead deepen, revealing new layers of strangeness. You're not expected to agree or disagree, only to witness and wonder. You may find that the greatest growth happens not in moments of certainty, but in the open spaces where questions remain unanswered. Here, you'll be offered no tidy bows, no final truths, no comforting closure. Instead, you'll receive the gift of unfiltered reality. Unresolved, unfinished, alive. Throughout this series, you'll be invited to question the very nature of your own mind. Who appointed you judge and jury of your thoughts? Why does wanting peace sometimes breed chaos? How do familiar fears return, night after night, dressed in new disguises? You'll confront the endless calculations, the echoing voids, the dreams that fracture at your touch. You'll learn to see your own thought patterns as quantum puzzles. Mysterious, looping, sometimes beautiful, always strange. And always you'll be reminded, this space is for you. There are no right answers here, no deadlines, no pressure to become someone different. You are allowed to be curious, to let go, to wonder and wander in safety. Every question you encounter is an invitation, not a demand. Every paradox is a door, not a wall. So, how are you feeling right now? Where are you listening from, and what does your own midnight loop feel like? As we begin, know that you are not alone in these questions. All around the world, minds are spinning, searching, yearning for rest. You are part of something ancient and universal. A web of dreamers and thinkers, awake together beneath the quiet sky. Let yourself be carried, gently, into the heart of the puzzle. Tonight, the infinite mirror waits. Your mind, your questions, your paradoxes, they all belong here. Welcome to the Midnight Loop. The pause button remains elusive, but together, we will see what happens when you finally stop searching for it. Tonight, every word is for your relaxation, inspiration, and personal development. You can listen without worry, breathe without hurry, and know that whatever you discover is enough. The mysteries of the mind are vast, the universe even more so. But here, in this quiet place, you are safe to question, to reflect, to be. As we enter this first chapter, a deeper disturbance stirs. Every night, your mind becomes an infinite mirror. But what if it isn't reflecting you at all? The machine is waiting. Next, we step into the questions that hold you captive and the unseen laws that bind your mind when sleep runs thin. You've heard all your life that your mind is your own. The narrative runs deep, stitched into every encouragement, every lesson about willpower and control. Think harder, figure it out. Use your mind as the key to every locked door. But here, in the true silence of the night, a different reality sharpens into view. You try to sleep, but the machine whirs to life. Thoughts line up like code, one after another, each insisting that just one more will unlock the answer. The logic seems flawless at first. If something is troubling you, think harder, dig deeper, build the perfect solution, and peace will surely follow. The harder you focus, the closer you must be to relief. Yet the clock keeps ticking, and sleep recedes into the dark. This is the unspoken law of insomnia. Every solution becomes a new problem. Every attempt to control becomes another layer of chaos. Your thoughts, designed to serve you, become jailers instead. The paradox is clear, sharp as glass. The mind you trust, the mind you polish all day long, transforms at night into a cage built of its own brilliance. And somewhere along the line, you agreed to be held hostage by your own questions without ever signing a contract. You lie awake, replaying the day's mistakes, rehearsing tomorrow's conversations, engineering plans to solve anxieties that may never arrive. The more you analyze, the less progress you make. It's as if the very act of thinking is a double-edged sword, a tool that, at night, turns and locks you in place. The ancient wisdom that thought brings clarity dissolves into the modern malaise where thought is endless static, a cloud that never rains. Each attempt to outthink insomnia strengthens its grip. The harder you chase, the faster rest retreats. The more elaborate the solution, the more labyrinthine the trap. Your mind spins elaborate stories of control and freedom, yet the doors never quite open. Sleep becomes a memory, the present moment a maze. The clock, once a steady metronome, now mocks you with every tick. You notice, too, how these patterns repeat. Insomnia is not a random thief. It is a system governed by its own twisted logic, a law that punishes the very effort that seeks to break it. The mind, designed for progress, stalls under the weight of its own scrutiny. You run faster, yet the ground slips beneath your feet. The more you try, the less you achieve. But here is the most unsettling question. When did you agree to play this game? No one told you that your own thoughts could become your captors. No one warned you that the very powers that make you brilliant by day, analysis, imagination, vigilance, could become shadows that stretch endlessly by night. There was no ceremony, no warning sign, only the slow, incremental tightening of invisible bonds. It's not just the big worries that steal sleep. Even the smallest details, what you forgot at work, what you might say to a friend tomorrow, multiply in the silence. They pile up, relentless, until the bed itself becomes unfamiliar terrain. You try to silence them, but each shushed thought echoes louder. You count sheep, recite mantras, retrace memories, but the mind refuses to obey. It is as if somewhere deep inside, the operating system has switched, and every command you give is rerouted into a loop. Every night, this pattern repeats. Hope, effort, frustration, defeat. The tools you have always trusted, your intelligence, your will, your relentless desire to solve, now serve a different master. Insomnia writes its own law, one that mocks your logic and rewrites your rules. You want relief, but the pursuit becomes the prison. As you listen now, notice if your body has tensed, if your breath has changed. This is not a signal to relax, not a call to action. It is simply an invitation to observe, to notice how the law operates in your own life. The patterns are there, whether you resist or surrender, whether you wish for sleep or curse its absence. This law is written in the midnight silence, in the hidden chambers of the mind where thought circles endlessly, never resting, never stopping. So why does thinking harder make you sleep less? The question rings out cold and unyielding. No resolution waits in the darkness, only the realization that your own mind may not always be your ally. The brilliance of your thoughts, the engine of your progress, can also be the architect of your stasis. Tonight, in this safe space, you have seen the first edge of the paradox. Your mind is your own until the night proves otherwise. You have tried to think your way to peace, only to find that effort breeds exhaustion, that focus creates fragmentation. This is the law insomnia writes in invisible ink. And tonight, you are allowed to see it. Next, we will unfold a deeper contradiction. You tried to fix insomnia by thinking your way out. But if thinking is your tool, what happens when the tool becomes the trap? The hour is late. The room is quiet, except for the subtle hum of thought threading itself through the stillness. You sense the law of insomnia in action. The harder you push, the further away rest seems. Yet, something deeper and more mysterious pulses beneath the struggle. A paradox waiting to be revealed, coiled in the heart of overthinking. You have spent so many nights perfecting your focus. Eyes closed, mind sharpened, you gather every tool you possess. Logic, memory, determination. Believing that if you can only harness them tightly enough, you will solve the puzzle of your sleeplessness. You bring your full attention to bear on the restless mind. You chase stray thoughts, track them across the horizon of consciousness, insisting they surrender to order. But each attempt to direct the mind with greater intensity only thickens the fog. The more you concentrate, the more fragmented everything becomes. Focus sharpens, then fractures. Clarity turns slippery. You can sense it. The act of paying more attention seems to break the very thing you want to fix. The solution is receding. Your progress, the goal of every waking mind, feels impossibly far away. A strange unease gathers here, a sense that something is fundamentally out of joint. Night after night, the pattern repeats. Concentration creates confusion. What was supposed to be your way out becomes the labyrinth itself. You begin to notice how each effort to fix your thoughts draws new tangles, new knots. The urge to control breeds more variables, more resistance. You reach out to shape your thoughts and watch them slip through your grasp, dissolving into 1,000 unresolved fragments. In the world of the quantum, this is no accident. There, in the hidden fabric of reality, the act of observation changes what is observed. A particle caught in the beam of attention freezes, refusing to move, stuck in perpetual possibility. The quantum Zeno effect. The more you look, the more you lock things in place. Your mind, trained for clarity and progress, has stumbled into its own quantum trap. The effort to move forward has become the force that holds you still. This paradox is no gentle puzzle. It is a razor. The tool you trust most can, under the right conditions, become your undoing. Each night, as sleep slips further from reach, the urge to solve grows stronger. Focus hardens. Your breath shortens. You feel the edges of your attention slicing through each thought, dissecting, analyzing, striving to catch and correct every imperfection. Yet, with every passing minute, the prospect of peace dims. Questions begin to pile up. Why does focusing make things less clear? Why does trying harder lead to stagnation? The air in your mind thickens. A strange echo sounds. The very act of trying to escape is what is trapping you. The harder you look, the less you see. This is the paradox that keeps you awake. Focus, the power that propels you by day, becomes your adversary at night. Every muscle of the mind strains toward a solution, but each strain multiplies the static. You sense you are in the presence of a fundamental contradiction, a flaw in the operating system of the self. You are not weak, not lazy, not lacking discipline. You are simply caught in a law as old as consciousness itself. You scan your thoughts for answers, but each answer splits into more questions. You feel yourself moving in circles. There is a deep tension in this realization, the sense that the normal rules have been upended. The precision you apply to problems in the light cannot break the midnight loop. You want to believe that more effort is the answer. You want to believe that mastery of the mind is only a breath away. But here, in the quantum paradox, more effort means less movement. The only thing advancing is the hour. You reach for every tool you know. Mindfulness, distraction, self-talk, planning, even the forceful refusal to think at all. Each tactic slides away, ineffective. You notice how attention, when turned inward and sharpened, becomes a spotlight that makes the shadows deeper. You are a scientist observing your own mind. But in this strange laboratory, the act of watching seems to poison the experiment. There is no comfort in this. Only the cold realization that your best qualities, your focus, your drive, your endless curiosity, are the very attributes freezing you in place. The midnight loop is not a failure of willpower. It is a paradox woven into the structure of thought. And somewhere inside, you recognize the rules have changed. Still, you try again as the hours slip past. You tighten your grip, marshal your logic, refuse to surrender. Yet the result remains unchanged. The more you focus, the less you achieve. Progress, which once meant moving forward, now means standing still. The paradox sharpens, demands attention, refuses to yield. You become aware of the endless recursion. The mind watching itself, tracking its own movements, judging each thought as it passes. Each attempt to steer the mind deeper only causes it to spiral. Focus has become quicksand. Every effort to rise only pulls you further under. The quantum world is filled with impossibilities, but here is a new one. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. The harder you press, the stronger the lock becomes. A part of you wants to rebel against this law, to force a breakthrough by sheer force of will. But the paradox stands firm, unmoved by effort or reason. You have entered a loop where your own tools are your captors. In the end, you are left with the most unsettling question. If thinking is your tool, what happens when the tool becomes the trap? Who are you without the engine of your thoughts? And what does freedom look like when the path you know best is blocked? The paradox is not here to be resolved, but to be recognized. Your focus, your greatest gift, is not always the answer. Sometimes it is the lock. In this space, you see the flaw in the pattern, the crack in the mirror, the loop in the code. The only certainty is that the rules of the mind are stranger than they appear, and progress is not always what it seems. Next, we will confront an even more disturbing riddle. You saw how focus backfires. Now, a clock waits in the darkness, a clock that only moves when you look away, but you can never stop looking. You remain in the thick of paradox. The mind, sharpened by focus, has become a chamber of echoes. Progress has stalled not from lack of effort, but from effort itself. The room is still. The hours bleed together. The clock on the wall, once a steady companion, now taunts you from the shadows. You become acutely aware of time, its passage, its refusal to cooperate. Every second stretches, pulled by the gravity of your attention. Each glance at the clock seems to slow it further, the hands creeping as if trapped in syrup. Minutes morph into hours. Sleep is a vanishing horizon. You count the ticks, desperate for relief, but the more you watch, the more time itself rebels. Here, a new contradiction emerges. You sense that time responds to your awareness in ways you cannot explain. When you focus on its passing, it refuses to move. The more you demand, the less you receive. The clock is both judge and accomplice, measuring your frustration, amplifying your despair. You have experienced this before, though perhaps not so vividly. The long night, the restless mind, the sensation that time itself has turned against you. Each attempt to capture rest stretches the night further. Each refusal to surrender multiplies the agony. The clock becomes a mirror, reflecting not just minutes, but the looping architecture of your thoughts. You notice how the very act of waiting for sleep becomes an obstacle. The mind, obsessed with control, insists that rest can be summoned by force of will. You monitor each sensation, track every moment, desperate for a sign that sleep is on the way. Yet, the more you monitor, the more elusive the promise becomes. The night lengthens. The bed becomes a stage for frustration. A familiar tension tightens in your chest. The paradox deepens. Only by letting go does time move, but letting go is the one thing you cannot force. You realize that the more you insist on progress, the more you remain trapped. The harder you try to stop thinking, the more your thoughts multiply. The clock slows, then freezes. You scan the edges of your awareness, searching for a crack in the cycle. Each attempt to distract yourself is absorbed into the loop. Each effort to forget time is itself another form of attention. You have become the watcher who cannot look away, the observer whose gaze locks everything in place. The contradiction is everywhere. You need rest, but the pursuit of rest breeds more tension. You crave movement, but the need to move traps you. Time, which should be a river, now feels like a block of ice, immovable, unyielding. The stillness is total, and yet, it is a stillness you have created by looking too closely. The irony stings. The act of observation, meant to bring clarity, only creates stasis. Time is no longer a background. It is an active participant in your struggle. Each second you measure is a second lost, a second frozen in the amber of your awareness. You begin to see how your mind, in its quest for control, has become the architect of its own torment. The clock only moves when you forget to look. The night only ends when you stop waiting for the dawn. Yet, the very awareness that traps you is impossible to surrender on command. You sense the pressure building. The cycle intensifies. The paradox sharpens into pain. You are the observer who cannot close their eyes, the prisoner who holds the keys but cannot drop them. The stillness of the room presses in. Each attempt to break free only tightens the chains. A part of you wonders if time itself is mocking you, responding to your attention with indifference. The mind, so skilled at analyzing, now rebels against its own methods. You look away, hoping the clock will move faster, but the thought of not looking becomes another form of looking. You are locked in an infinite regress, unable to escape the trap your own awareness has built. There is no solution in this moment, only the raw recognition of the paradox. The clock on the wall is silent, unchanging, waiting for you to stop waiting. The stillness grows deeper, the loop tighter. You are suspended between desire and surrender, between the need for control and the impossibility of achieving it. Can stopping make time move faster? The question is both absurd and inescapable. The very act of asking slows everything down. The paradox is perfect, the trap complete. You have become the watcher of your own frustration, the observer whose gaze brings nothing but stillness. You sense the beginnings of a deeper disturbance, a flaw in the very architecture of consciousness. The urge to escape breeds the conditions of captivity. The need for progress ensures stagnation. The clock, once a marker of freedom, now measures only the extent of your entrapment. As the night stretches on, the question lingers. Can you ever escape the cycle? Or is the act of escape itself the engine of your imprisonment? The paradox offers no relief, only a sharper awareness of the strangeness at the heart of your struggle. Next, we will unravel a new enigma. You tried to outsmart the clock, but what if the act of noticing is why the pain keeps multiplying? The world has shrunk to the limits of your awareness. Darkness blankets the room, yet your mind glows with an artificial light, searching, monitoring, inspecting. The clock has frozen under your gaze, and every second of sleeplessness becomes a lens, focusing your attention sharper and sharper on what's wrong. The act of noticing has become a ritual, repeated each night as though vigilance itself is a defense against chaos. But there, in the pit of your stomach, a deeper realization is growing. The closer you watch, the more the problem spreads. You notice a tension in your jaw, a flutter in your chest, a restless ache in your legs. You study these sensations with the eye of a scientist. Each anomaly is catalogued, dissected, turned over in your mind. You search for meaning in each twitch, each flicker of discomfort, hoping to find the cause and erase it. But as your focus sharpens, the sensations multiply. Every attempt to observe, every analysis you conduct, seems to give birth to new disturbances. Your own attention is a magnifying glass, and under its heat, the smallest worries erupt into wildfire. You begin to see that the observer is not neutral. Noticing a problem does not dissolve it. Instead, your vigilance acts as a spotlight, illuminating every crack, every flaw, until your entire inner world feels riddled with imperfection. The pain grows not in spite of your awareness, but because of it. This is the observer's curse. Your desire to understand has become the reason you suffer. The more you try to monitor your mind, the more elusive peace becomes. It's as if the act of searching for stillness creates ripples that disturb the calm. You notice your thoughts are looping, your emotions flickering, your body refusing to settle. You track these cycles, hoping to find a pattern that can be interrupted. But the act of tracking itself creates the pattern. The system responds to the observer, warping in ways you cannot control. You wonder why your awareness, so prized in daylight, becomes your tormentor at night. The same faculty that allows you to notice beauty, to sense danger, to analyze and improve, now churns ceaselessly, amplifying every discomfort. The more you attempt to fix your thoughts, the more they multiply. The pain does not shrink under scrutiny. It metastasizes, splitting and spreading with every new observation. You recognize, with a kind of awe, that the act of noticing is no longer passive. Your mind, in its hypervigilance, has become a creator of problems. The harder you look, the more issues appear. A small worry about sleep spirals into anxiety about anxiety. The tiniest ache becomes evidence of catastrophe. The observer's curse is that you cannot observe without participating. You cannot watch without changing what is watched. You scan for silence, for stillness, for the end of the disturbance. But each search creates new waves. Each attempt to stop noticing is itself a form of noticing. You are locked in an endless feedback loop, where attention feeds the very chaos it seeks to control. There is no comfort in this realization, only the stark recognition that your mind is both observer and participant, scientist and experiment. The questions multiply. If noticing creates the problem, how can you ever hope to find relief? If your awareness is the source of the disturbance, is peace even possible? You sense the paradox tightening, the observer and the observed locked in a dance with no exit. The act of noticing is the engine of suffering, the magnifier of pain. You want to believe that vigilance will save you, but each night proves the opposite. The mind, left to its own devices, manufactures new crises with every glance. A deep unease settles in your chest. You have become the architect of your own discomfort, the engineer of your own insomnia. The observer's curse is that you cannot escape your own gaze. Every attempt to monitor the mind, to control its chaos, only multiplies the chaos. You are trapped not by the content of your thoughts, but by the structure of your attention itself. The night stretches heavy and endless. You notice the fatigue in your body, the ache behind your eyes, the restless beat of your heart. You catalog these symptoms, knowing that each entry in your mental logbook only feeds the problem. The urge to understand becomes the fuel for confusion. The search for clarity spawns new clouds. This is the moment when you begin to see the curse for what it is. Noticing does not dissolve the pain. It makes it grow. The observer, far from being neutral, is a participant in the suffering. You are the watcher and the watched, the judge and the accused, the scientist and the experiment. Now you know noticing creates chaos, so why do you keep putting your thoughts on trial every single night? Next, we will confront the relentless urge to judge, to dissect, to stand in the role of prosecutor in your own midnight courtroom. The courtroom is always open. Each night, as sleep recedes, you step into the role of judge, summoning your thoughts one by one to the witness stand. Your mind transforms into a chamber of accusations, a hall of relentless scrutiny where no detail is too small to be interrogated, no thought too innocent to escape cross-examination. You weigh each memory, each emotion, each stray fragment of doubt, searching for evidence of guilt or innocence. No one invited you to this trial. No one told you to take the gavel. Yet you find yourself presiding, night after night, over a procession of fears, regrets, hopes, and what-ifs. The mind is a courtroom, and you are both prosecutor and defendant, questioning your every move with surgical precision. The urge to judge, to sort, to label becomes irresistible. You want to bring order to the chaos, to mete out justice to the unruly mob of your thoughts. But in this courtroom, the rules are always changing. The standards of evidence shift with your mood. Each verdict leads not to resolution, but to new questions, new appeals, new trials. You convict yourself for things you haven't done, acquit yourself for crimes you didn't commit, and sentence yourself to hours of restless speculation. The cycle is endless. You sense the futility in the process, even as you continue it. No thought is ever truly dismissed. No emotion is ever fully acquitted. The urge to judge keeps the trial alive, dragging you through every mistake, every unresolved feeling, every possible outcome of tomorrow's conversations. The more you judge, the more material you find to judge. Each ruling breeds new cases. The docket never clears. You question the origins of this compulsion. Who appointed you to this role? When did you accept the burden of endless self-judgment? There is no answer, only the recognition that the habit is so deeply woven into your identity that it seems inseparable from thought itself. The courtroom is a mirage, but its consequences are real. The mind you seek to order becomes ever more chaotic, ever more unruly, under the weight of your judgments. A strange contradiction emerges. The urge to control your thoughts only increases their resistance. The more you try to judge and correct, the more the mind rebels. Thoughts you wish to dismiss return, louder, more insistent. Emotions you seek to banish multiply, wearing new masks. The courtroom becomes a theater of endless appeals, each ruling giving rise to new grievances, new anxieties. You scan your inner world for a way out, but every path leads back to the judge's bench. The very act of seeking order becomes its own source of disorder. Each attempt to impose discipline breeds new forms of chaos. You are the ruler of a realm where every law creates new outlaws, every verdict creates new crimes. A quiet despair settles in the spaces between your thoughts. The trial is never fair, never finished. The need to judge is both a shield and a sword, a mechanism for self-defense that doubles as an instrument of torment. You want relief, but the pursuit of justice only deepens the unrest. You become aware of the absurdity at the heart of this ritual. The judge and the accused are the same person. The courtroom exists only in your mind, but the sentences are carried out in your body. Restlessness, tension, sleeplessness. You crave freedom, but every attempt to adjudicate your thoughts forges new shackles. The night wears on. The list of grievances grows. The verdict is never final. You judge yourself for judging, criticize yourself for criticizing, build layers of trial upon trial until the process itself becomes the only thing left. The judge's bench has become a prison cell, and you are both jailer and prisoner. You sense that something must change, but the rules are unclear. The courtroom persists, sustained by your own habits of thought, your own compulsion to seek order at any cost. The paradox is complete. The urge to judge creates the disorder it seeks to erase. The pursuit of control guarantees chaos. You are the lawmaker in a land with no law, the judge in a trial with no end. Now you know noticing creates chaos, so why do you keep putting your thoughts on trial every single night? You've sentenced yourself to mental prison, but why does every escape attempt double your chains? Next, we will descend into the heart of paralysis itself, uncovering the hidden machinery that traps you even as you try to run. The night is at its stillest. Your body lies motionless, but inside your mind, everything thrashes. You have tried to judge, to correct, to break free from the cycle of thought. Yet the harder you push for release, the tighter the grip becomes. A strange heaviness settles in, not just upon your limbs, but upon the entire machinery of your mind. It is as if every impulse to act is intercepted, every signal jammed, every escape plan dismantled before it even begins. You are not asleep, not awake, not entirely anywhere. In this borderland, the desire for movement is at its fiercest, but motion itself is impossible. You rehearse your strategies, distraction, positive thinking, total surrender, but every method doubles back, reinforcing the very barriers you hope to cross. The mind's courtroom has become a cell. You rattle the bars, and the bars grow stronger. A deeper paradox gnaws at you now. The longing for freedom is the force of your captivity. You try to leave, and in the trying, you stay rooted to the spot. Each attempt to shift, to move, to reset only tightens the knots. The mind becomes a hall of mirrors, reflecting back every struggle, every effort, amplifying your sense of defeat. The urge to break the cycle has become the cycle itself. You are a prisoner of your own design. The jailer is not some external authority, but the architecture of your desire for release. Each time you tell yourself, "I must get out," you write a new rule, a new protocol, a new line of code into the system, one that binds you tighter to your place. The harder you try, the more the room closes in. The very energy you summon for escape is converted into the cement that seals the walls. Sleep remains a mirage, a promise withheld. You scan your body, searching for any sign of softening, any hint that the tension is dissolving. But the scanning itself is an act of paralysis. You are caught between the urge to move and the impossibility of movement, between the desire to be free and the reality of being frozen. Even surrender feels scripted, another trick the mind uses to hold you still. You remember moments in daylight when motion felt effortless, when walking, stretching, breathing all happened without instruction or intention. Now, every gesture is premeditated, loaded with the weight of expectation. You try to relax your jaw, your shoulders, your chest, but each instruction only increases the sense of strain. The mind hovers above the body, issuing commands that never reach their destination. A deep frustration simmers beneath the surface. You know the exit is close, that some tiny shift might break the spell, but every attempt at change multiplies the sense of stasis. You want to act, but you can only observe. You want to run, but you can only witness yourself standing still. The mind and body are split by a thin, unyielding membrane, a barrier grown from the very wish to cross it. This is the paralysis paradox. The force that should propel you forward only pins you in place. You think of the animals who play dead when threatened, the circuitry in the brain that freezes in the face of overwhelming fear or uncertainty. The system, designed for safety, now becomes a trap. You are held in suspension, neither fleeing nor fighting, but waiting for something, anything, to change. The more you analyze this paralysis, the more total it becomes. Each thought about moving is a rehearsal of not moving. Each plan to break free rehearses the act of being stuck. The mind cycles, loops, rehearses, but never acts. You want to scream, but your voice is swallowed in the static. The cell grows smaller, the air heavier. You ask yourself, why does every escape attempt double your chains? The answer never arrives. The question itself is another link in the chain, another program running in the background, using up all available resources. You are trapped not by bars or locks, but by the relentless rehearsal of escape. The plan to leave is the plan that keeps you here. A strange silence descends, heavy with the sense of futility. You wonder if stillness is your true nature, if the urge to move is itself a misunderstanding. But even this thought is just another attempt to engineer release, another loop in the script. The mind refuses to let go of its desire for freedom, and in that refusal, it maintains its own prison. You begin to suspect that the paralysis is not an enemy to be conquered, but a mirror reflecting the nature of your attention. You are both prisoner and guard, both architect and occupant of this cell. The act of noticing, the act of judging, the act of escaping, all are woven into a single, unbreakable loop. You've sentenced yourself to mental prison, but why does every escape attempt double your chains? You've seen the paralysis, but who's echoing in your head at 3 a.m., and what if you're not the one doing the thinking? Next, we will peer into the void, where the voices that fill your mind may not even be your own. The cell is quiet, but the silence is crowded. In the paralysis of your midnight state, a new disturbance surfaces, an eerie sense that not every thought circling in your head belongs to you. You listen more closely, picking apart the threads of inner dialogue, and notice a strange, unsettling truth. The voice in your mind shifts shape, adopts unfamiliar tones, sometimes repeats phrases that don't feel like your own. There is a quality to certain thoughts, a cadence, a vocabulary, a persistent mood that seems foreign, even as it arises from within. Whose memories are these, returning in loops and fragments? Whose anxieties are these, flickering at the edges of your consciousness? Some thoughts sound like a parent, a teacher, a friend. Others echo with the static of media, the residue of overheard conversations, the ghosts of old arguments. You scan your inner world, seeking the source of these echoes, but the trail goes cold. You cannot separate the original from the imitation, the authentic from the adopted. The mind is an endless chamber, and the voices ricochet in the dark, each amplifying the other. There is no single narrator, no central self issuing commands. There is only the noise of the void, filling every available space. Profound disquiet takes hold. If these thoughts are not truly yours, then whose are they? What is the self if not the author of its own mind? The boundaries blur. You begin to wonder if identity is a performance, a script assembled from borrowed lines, recycled anxieties, secondhand hopes. The echo chamber grows louder, each thought chasing its tail in a hall of mirrors. You catch yourself repeating phrases you once heard but never believed. I'll never get this right. Something is wrong with me. What if I fail? These are not facts, not evidence, not conclusions you reached. They are hand-me-downs, heirlooms of insecurity passed from generation to generation, from friend to friend, from screen to screen. The mind is porous, open to influence, susceptible to suggestion. This revelation unsettles the foundation of your midnight struggle. If the voices are not your own, then the battles you fight may not be yours to win or lose. You are haunted by the ghosts of other people's doubts, imprisoned by the scripts you never agreed to follow. The mind, so fierce in its quest for agency, is revealed to be a receiver as much as a sender, a vessel for echoes that arrive uninvited. You try to claim ownership, to assert control, but the effort only multiplies the confusion. The more you fight to identify your thoughts, the more you become aware of the endless borrowing, the untraceable origins. Each attempt to silence the echoes is itself an echo, another repetition in the loop. You are not the sole inhabitant of your mind, but one voice among many, a temporary arrangement of influence and memory. The void is not empty, but teeming. The thoughts that seem to paralyze you, to judge you, to freeze you in place, are not always written in your own hand. The inner critic borrows its lines from old authorities. The worrier recites lines from childhood warnings. The doubter draws its arguments from collective fear. The midnight loop is a chorus, not a monologue, and the harmony is always tense, unresolved. You begin to see that escape is not a matter of willpower, but of recognizing the nature of the echoes. The voices may never be silenced, but their origins can be unmasked. The mind, though never fully your own, can become a place of awareness, if not of control. The echoes persist, but their power diminishes as you witness them for what they are. Fragments, influences, unfinished conversations reverberating in the darkness. You've seen the paralysis, But who's echoing in your head at 3 a.m.? And what if you're not the one doing the thinking? You've heard strange voices in your head. But why does craving peace create more war inside your mind? Next, we will confront the paradox that arises when the search for peace itself becomes the trigger for chaos, and the longing for rest becomes a battlefield of restless thought. The void has spoken, and the echoes refuse to subside. You sense the fragments of others swirling inside you, their worries masquerading as your own. In the midst of this chorus, a fresh tension tightens its grip, a paradox that feels almost cruel in its logic. The more you long for sleep, the more impossible it becomes. Each moment of desire seems to drive your goal further into the dark, as if the very act of wanting has changed the laws of nature. You tell yourself, "I need to sleep." You remind your body, plead with your mind, bargain with the silence. Each attempt to coax yourself into rest is met with resistance. Your craving for peace transforms the bed into a battleground. The sheets twist beneath you, your heart pounds out warnings, and your thoughts sprint faster, as if running from the possibility of relief. This is not simply frustration. It is as if gravity itself has reversed. What should draw you in repels you. What you seek flees. You notice that the more desperately you chase sleep, the more awake you feel. The mind responds to urgency with suspicion, interpreting desire as danger. Your longing for comfort becomes a signal that something is wrong, and in that signal, chaos blooms. You become hyper-aware of every sensation. The weight of your eyelids, the position of your hands, the faintest sounds outside your window. Each is analyzed for clues, evidence of progress or defeat. The more you monitor, the less likely it is that sleep will come. Wanting becomes a performance, an endless checklist of shoulds and musts. The pressure builds until the desire itself becomes unbearable. You scan your thoughts for the cause of this rebellion, searching for the moment when craving tipped into obsession. Somewhere along the line, wanting rest became the very thing that ensured unrest. The system, built to reward effort, now punishes it. The mind confuses urgency with danger, turning a natural impulse into a threat. The harder you try, the more the target shifts. You remember the rare nights when sleep arrived unbidden, slipping in like a kind guest. There was no expectation, no effort, just a gentle surrender to the rhythm of breath and darkness. But now, with every attempt to recapture that peace, the formula fails. Wanting has become the wall. The search for comfort ensures discomfort. A new anxiety unfurls. What if peace is only possible when you stop searching? But stopping is the one thing you cannot command. The mind, alert to your desperation, interprets every attempt to let go as another form of effort. The paradox locks you in place. You cannot have what you most desire while you are desiring it. The craving for sleep mutates into craving for answers. Why does the mind rebel against its own needs? Why does the heart race when all you want is calm? The desire for peace breeds more war inside your mind. Each soothing word becomes another demand. Each mental trick to relax becomes another test you are failing. You sense that something ancient is at work here. A survival mechanism misapplied, an evolutionary glitch that transforms the search for safety into a signal of danger. Wanting becomes warning, desire becomes resistance. The feedback loop tightens and the night stretches on. Your body is a battlefield, but the enemy is not fatigue, not even wakefulness. It is the force of your own wanting. You try to outsmart the paradox, to distract yourself with numbers, stories, breath. Each method works only as long as you forget what you are trying to do. The moment you remember, the gravity flips, and the goal slips further away. There is no solution offered, only a deepening sense of the contradiction. Wanting sleep pushes it further away. Craving peace creates more war. The harder you pull, the more you are repelled. You are trapped not by exhaustion, but by the engine of your own longing. You've heard strange voices in your head. But why does craving peace create more war inside your mind? You chase after rest, but every night your memories reappear. Why do they always feel like strangers? Next, we will slip into the mirage of memory, where old thoughts return in new disguises, and the familiar becomes unsettlingly strange. The night is a carousel, and every revolution brings familiar faces into view. You reach for rest, and your mind delivers a parade of memories, some sharp and vivid, others hazy and distorted. These thoughts return with a force that feels inevitable, as if summoned by the very act of wanting something else. Yet with each recurrence, there is a peculiar twist. The memories seem new, almost foreign, as if they belong to someone else entirely. You scan these returning thoughts for meaning, for a pattern or lesson that will justify their presence. An old embarrassment from years ago, a conversation you never finished, the sound of someone's voice, the image of a door you forgot to lock. They flicker through your mind, familiar but uncanny, wrapped in a sheen of strangeness that resists explanation. You begin to realize that memory is not a stable archive. Each time a thought returns, it arrives with new edges, new shadows, new questions. The mind does not retrieve memories like files from a cabinet. It recreates them, colors them with the mood of the moment, sharpens or blurs them according to the emotional weather. Tonight, the memories that keep you awake wear masks you don't remember giving them. A disquiet settles in. If these are your thoughts, why do they feel like visitors? Why do familiar scenes provoke unfamiliar feelings? The mind spins stories about the past, but each retelling is a new creation, a fresh arrangement of details and doubts. The carousel never stops. The same images repeat, but the experience is never the same. The memories mutate, haunt, refuse to be resolved. You notice the pattern. The memories that return at night are not always the most important, but the most unfinished. Loose threads, unresolved conversations, questions with no answers. They press in not to comfort but to provoke, to demand attention. Each night they wear a new costume, speak with a new voice, ask the same questions in a language you can't quite translate. The mind becomes suspicious of its own creations. Are these memories accurate? Were these events as significant as they feel now? Or are they shaped by your current longing for sleep? Each attempt to pin down the truth only deepens the uncertainty. The familiar becomes alien, the known becomes unknowable. You scan the faces of your memories for reassurance, but none is offered. Instead, the memories multiply, each insisting on its right to exist, each demanding a verdict. The mind, unable to dismiss them, welcomes them back night after night, replaying the scenes, rehearsing the same questions, refusing to let go. The paradox grows. The thoughts that haunt you are both old and new, yours and not yours, persistent but always slightly out of reach. The memory becomes a mirage, visible, tangible, but never solid enough to grasp. You chase after clarity, but the images only grow stranger. The mind is a carousel, but you are not the rider. You are the one spinning, searching for an exit that never appears. You ask, why do the same thoughts feel new every night? The question lingers, unresolved. The memories will return, again and again, until their echoes fill the silence. You are haunted not by the past itself, but by the mind's relentless recreation of it. A process that ensures the old will always feel unfamiliar, that the familiar will always remain just beyond reach. You chase after rest, but every night your memories reappear. Why do they always feel like strangers? Your thoughts recycle, never aging, always returning. If you keep adding, why does the answer only drift farther away? Next, we will enter the endless calculation, where thought loops multiply and every solution seems to push the answer further into the night. The memory carousel is still spinning. You watch old moments circle by, wearing new masks, whispering the same unsolved questions. Soon, the mind shifts strategies. Instead of memories, it offers math, endless, looping calculations. If rest can't be found in the past, perhaps it can be engineered in the future. And so, the numbers begin. You start with the most basic arithmetic. You count your breaths. You count the seconds between clock ticks. Sometimes you try to count sheep or stars or heartbeats. The logic is flawless, or so it seems. If you can just track the numbers, if you can get the math right, sleep will reward your discipline. You hope the counting will drown out the noise, will quiet the restless memory carousel. But the numbers refuse to stay simple. Each count multiplies. Each pattern spawns new subpatterns. What began as a simple exercise now twists into obsession. Did you breathe in for exactly 4 seconds? Or was it 3? Did you exhale slowly enough? Or did you rush the last moment? You try to correct your pace, and the corrections become their own calculations. The numbers loop, stack, tangle, overlap. The act of calculation becomes a replacement for rest itself. You tell yourself, just finish this sequence, just get to this number, and you'll be free. Yet the freedom never arrives. The solution always seems one more count away, one more cycle, one more perfectly executed routine. The math has no endpoint, and so you keep circling, reciting, refining. The mind has built a puzzle with no solution, a labyrinth made of arithmetic. A deeper frustration creeps in. The more you try to solve, the less you understand. Your efforts to find precision only expose new flaws. Was your heartbeat even, or did you skip? Did you lose count and need to start again? You chase the answer, but the answer recedes, growing smaller as you approach. Each new attempt to calculate rest becomes another reason you cannot rest. The logic of the loop is perfect, its outcome perfectly empty. You see now how the urge to solve has become its own engine. The calculation is not a tool, but a treadmill. You sweat, you labor, you count and recount, but you never move forward. The act of problem-solving becomes the problem. The numbers, meant to create order, have only produced a new kind of chaos. Each sum leads to a new subtraction. Each sequence circles back on itself. The paradox sharpens. Can you solve a problem by counting the same numbers forever? Every cycle brings you closer to exhaustion, but never to rest. The mind refuses to let go of the numbers, believing that one more calculation, one more perfect count, will be the key. But as the night deepens, the numbers only multiply, crowding out silence, crowding out sleep. You wonder, perhaps not for the first time, if the act of calculation is simply another mask for anxiety. The numbers distract from memory, from longing, from the echoing void that preceded them. But their distraction is incomplete. They do not soothe. They demand. You serve the algorithm, and the algorithm never sleeps. You are left with the unsettling realization. The mind is addicted to unfinished math. If you keep adding, why does the answer only drift farther away? Each sum is followed by another problem, each solution by another flaw. There is no escape in calculation, only more calculation. Your thoughts recycle, never aging, always returning. If you keep adding, why does the answer only drift farther away? You're stuck calculating? But did you write this code? Or are you running someone else's virus? Next, we will descend into the mysterious programming of your mind, where the nightly algorithm repeats itself and the question of authorship grows urgent. The numbers recede, but the process persists. You sense the underlying structure, the invisible machinery beneath your thoughts, cycling and recycling routines as if guided by an unseen hand. The counting, the reviewing, the doubting, each is an instruction set, running automatically, long after the conscious mind has asked for peace. You begin to wonder, who designed this system? Who coded the rules by which your mind operates in the small hours before dawn? You sense patterns within patterns. There are familiar routines, the same questions about the future, the same self-doubt, the same mental rehearsals. They play out not by choice, but by default. The brain is running its own script, unbidden and unstoppable. You lie awake, but it is as if the program was written long before you reached this night. A strange suspicion grows. Perhaps this is not your code at all. Perhaps the algorithm running at 3 a.m. was borrowed, inherited, installed without your awareness. You replay phrases and worries that sound like voices from your past. A parent's warning, a teacher's criticism, the whisper of ancient anxieties that do not truly belong to you. Your thoughts behave with the precision of software, but the source code is scrambled, anonymous, impossible to trace. The operating system is relentless. Each time you try to rewrite the code, the system resists. You want to break the loop, but the loop anticipates your moves. Every command to relax becomes a subroutine for tension. Every attempt to let go is recoded as another reason to hold on. The program is self-reinforcing, self-correcting, unyielding. You scan your mental landscape for evidence of authorship. Did you write these routines, or were they given to you by someone else? Are you the architect, or merely the operator? The question refuses to resolve. The code is too dense, too interwoven with memory and instinct, with hopes and fears. The nightly algorithm hums along, indifferent to your confusion. You sense the machine running at full speed. Even when you try to rest, the processes keep spinning. Background tasks, memory leaks, unresolved exceptions. The mind will not shut down. It restarts the same lines of code over and over, as if trapped in an infinite loop. You are not in control of this operating system. You are only aware of its endless execution. A quiet fear creeps in. If you didn't write this code, how can you ever hope to escape it? If your mind is running someone else's virus, can you ever uninstall it? The question gnaws at your sense of self. You want to believe in agency, in authorship, in the possibility of reprogramming your thoughts. But the deeper you search, the less certain you become. You are left in a strange limbo, aware of the algorithm but unable to alter it. Each night, the script runs. Each night, the program executes its routines. You are the observer, the reluctant participant, the passenger on a train whose destination is always just out of reach. You're stuck calculating? But did you write this code? Or are you running someone else's virus? Now you see the code looping, but every time you run tomorrow's simulation, what part of you is erased tonight? Next, we will follow the algorithm into the future, where the act of imagining tomorrow may be the very thing that steals sleep from tonight. The algorithm is humming, and you feel its power more sharply than ever. The routines play out, cycling and looping, but a new program now takes over: projection. The mind's theater lights up with images of tomorrow, scenarios both dazzling and disastrous. The operating system, sleepless, insists on simulating futures you haven't yet lived. Each possibility is measured, mapped, rehearsed. You tell yourself this is preparation, this is safety. But every simulation extracts a price. You scan through outcomes. What if you miss that meeting? What if the words come out wrong? What if you forget, fail, lose control? Each potential future spawns 1,000 branches, each more complex than the last. You try to find the right sequence of actions that will guarantee everything will be fine, but the branches multiply faster than you can follow. Your awareness fragments across the hours ahead, dissolving your presence in the moment. You notice the pattern. The more you plan, the more the anxiety grows. Each rehearsal breeds new uncertainties. Each solution exposes new gaps. The algorithm insists that thinking through every scenario will bring control, but the reality is starkly opposite. Imagination becomes quicksand, pulling you deeper into worry. Tomorrow's shadows dance across tonight's wall, turning hope into tension, possibility into paralysis. You attempt to negotiate with your mind. Just let me sleep. I'll handle it all tomorrow. But the algorithm ignores you, recoding even your pleas as further evidence that more preparation is needed. The cycle intensifies. Anxiety breeds planning. Planning breeds anxiety. The thought that you haven't prepared enough becomes another branch of the simulation, demanding its own run-through. A deepening discomfort surfaces. The mind, trying to secure tomorrow, is cannibalizing tonight. Each moment spent rehearsing the future is stolen from the space where rest could blossom. The present shrinks, invaded by endless projections. Your body remains in the bed, but your awareness has been scattered into dozens of futures, none of which are real, all of which are urgent. You sense a law at work. The more you try to control tomorrow, the more you lose the ground beneath your feet. Preparation, which should bring confidence, instead ensures uncertainty. The more options you imagine, the less equipped you feel. The future, designed to be a canvas for hope, becomes a screen for anxiety. A strange loss grows in your chest. In imagining every possible tomorrow, what part of you is erased tonight? The more you run these simulations, the less substance remains for the present moment. The hours slip away, stolen by rehearsals that never end, predictions that never settle. The paradox sharpens. The mind, desperate to safeguard you, becomes your own thief. The tools designed for planning turn into engines of exhaustion. The very act of imagining tomorrow guarantees that you miss out on tonight. You're left with the realization that foresight is a double-edged sword. The mind's hunger for certainty breeds only more uncertainty. The bed remains cold, the clock unmoving, your eyes fixed open as your awareness cycles through timelines that never arrive. Now you see the code looping, but every time you run tomorrow's simulation, what part of you is erased tonight? You seek answers for safety, but why does every answer you get leave you with more questions and less hope? Next, we will enter the answer trap, where the search for solutions only multiplies the riddles you face. The simulations have left you exhausted, scattered between futures you cannot reach and a present that feels hollow. The mind, frustrated by uncertainty, shifts tactics once again. Now it demands answers. The questions are insistent, urgent. Why am I like this? What should I do? How can I guarantee safety? You promise yourself that if you can just resolve these riddles, relief will follow. But as the answers arrive, something unexpected happens. They fracture, multiply, and spawn new questions. Each answer brings temporary comfort, a momentary pause in the storm, but the peace never lasts. The answer, instead of closing the loop, opens it wider. Every solution generates exceptions. Every explanation exposes more unknowns. The clarity you hoped for dissolves into ambiguity. The mind, unwilling to stop searching, uses each answer as a launchpad for deeper uncertainty. You recognize this pattern. The pursuit of answers is endless. There is no finish line. The mind's curiosity is insatiable, its demands recursive. The question, "Am I safe?" leads to, "How do I know?" which spawns, "What if I missed something?" The act of resolving uncertainty only magnifies the sense that something crucial remains hidden. The mind becomes a puzzle box. Each compartment unlocked only reveals more secret chambers, more questions, more anxiety. You grow restless, almost frantic. The search for closure is the engine of sleeplessness. Each time you think you've pinned down the reason for your unrest, new variables erupt into view. The mind refuses to let go of the pursuit, convinced that the right answer exists just beyond the next question. But the quest itself is endless. A treadmill with no off switch, a maze with no center. The paradox intensifies. The more answers you demand, the less hope you find. Certainty breeds new forms of doubt. The logic you hoped would bring resolution turns against you, weaponizing your own intelligence. Every new piece of information is both a stepping stone and a trapdoor, opening onto further uncertainties. The thirst for closure is unquenchable. You realize, with growing discomfort, that answers are not the end of inquiry. They are invitations to keep searching. The mind, terrified of gaps in knowledge, creates an infinite supply of them. The more you know, the more you sense how much is unknowable. Each night becomes a spiral, the pursuit of answers fueling the very unrest it seeks to extinguish. The room is silent, but your mind is loud with contradictions. Every answer multiplies your questions. Each solution amplifies your unease. You have not grown closer to relief. You have only wandered deeper into the maze. You seek answers for safety, but why does every answer you get leave you with more questions and less hope? You're drowning in questions, but why does reality seem to break apart the harder you look? Next, we will examine the very fabric of perception itself, where deeper thinking does not bring reality closer, but instead fractures it into something unrecognizable. The answer trap is still closing around you. Your search for resolution has only multiplied your uncertainty, each solution feeding new doubts, each explanation giving birth to fresh confusion. The mind, unsatisfied by ambiguity, doubles down on its investigation. If more answers only widen the chasm, perhaps a different strategy will succeed. So the mind drills deeper, peeling back layer after layer, desperate for something solid beneath the surface. But as you descend, reality begins to splinter. The more closely you analyze your thoughts, the less trustworthy they seem. Every feeling is picked apart, every motive is scrutinized, every memory becomes suspect. The process of deeper thinking, meant to uncover truth, instead erodes your sense of what is real. The world starts to shimmer, to wobble, to dissolve into abstraction. You find yourself second-guessing everything. Did you really feel that way? Or are you just convincing yourself you did? Is that memory authentic? Or has it been twisted by endless review? The further you chase certainty, the more reality slips through your grasp. The lines blur between what is happening and what you imagine, between what is true and what is merely possible. The pursuit of clarity now breeds hallucination. This is not the escape you sought. You feel yourself suspended between competing versions of events, unable to trust any of them. Reality fractures, not just into competing memories or possibilities, but into textures. Was your fear ever real, or just a ghost conjured by your scrutiny? Was your hope genuine, or a mask for something deeper and darker? The self divides, splinters, multiplies, each piece doubting the others. You begin to notice a strange quality to your perceptions. The more you focus, the less real your experience becomes. A sense of detachment creeps in, as if you are watching a movie of your own life, each detail flickering at the edge of your awareness, always just out of reach. This sense of unreality is both subtle and overwhelming, a persistent background hum that disrupts your ability to rest. The mind's tools turn against you. Analysis is no longer a source of insight, but a machine for generating doubt. The brain is so eager to resolve contradiction that it fabricates new ones, each sharper and more intrusive than the last. You grow skeptical of your own skepticism. Even your attempts to ignore the paradox only reveal new cracks in the foundation. A mounting discomfort takes hold. You are no longer sure if the world you perceive is shared by anyone else, or if you are alone in a hyperreality built from your own thinking. The mind, meant to bring you closer to truth, now serves as a wall, separating you from any sense of authenticity. You realize with chilling clarity, the deeper you think, the less real everything feels. You're drowning in questions, but why does reality seem to break apart the harder you look? You look deeper for truth, but what if the mirror only multiplies your pain, never shows your face? Next, we will step into that mirror, exploring the treacherous terrain where self-reflection becomes a weapon instead of a window. Reality is now a puzzle you cannot solve. Each attempt to clarify only increases the distortion. The urge to resolve doubt gives way to the urge to understand yourself, to inspect the very core of your being. The mind turns inward, its gaze relentless, its curiosity voracious. You hold the mirror up to your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, searching for coherence, for wholeness, for some stable sense of self. But the mirror does not cooperate. Each reflection is layered atop another. Each interpretation breeds a new perspective. You find yourself trapped in endless self-reflection, reviewing, reliving, revising every experience, every choice, every motive. What began as an attempt to know yourself transforms into an endless project, a hall of mirrors where every image splits and multiplies. You begin to sense the danger lurking within this process. Reflection becomes rumination. Self-awareness becomes self-interrogation. You pick apart your motives, challenge your intentions, probe the authenticity of every emotion. The mirror is no longer a tool for growth. It is a device for torture, amplifying your flaws and distorting your strengths. Each insight becomes another opportunity for self-critique. The paradox intensifies. The more you reflect, the less you recognize yourself. Each loop through the mirror leaves you more fragmented, more uncertain, more adrift. You catch glimpses of your own face, but it never stays still. It morphs, splits, turns away. The self you hope to find is replaced by a collage of doubts, regrets, and hypotheses. You notice that the pain increases with every cycle. Each effort to understand is met with new questions, new suspicions. You become your own adversary, your own critic, your own unsparing judge. The mirror only multiplies your pain, never shows your face. The urge to know yourself produces only distortion. There is a deep, private ache in this endless review. You remember moments when self-reflection was healing, when it brought understanding and peace. Now, the very act has turned toxic. You are no longer growing, you are dissecting. The project of self-knowledge has become an autopsy, performed on a self that refuses to stay dead or alive. You search for an off switch, a way to stop the looping, but every attempt is itself another form of reflection. Even your desire for peace becomes a topic for analysis, another data point to critique. The mind, locked in its mirror maze, circles endlessly, inventing new forms of pain with every turn. You ask yourself, when does self-reflection become self-destruction? The answer never arrives. The mirror only shows new fractures, new divisions. The room grows darker. Your sense of self, once a foundation, is now an endless regression, a recursion without resolution. You look deeper for truth, but what if the mirror only multiplies your pain, never shows your face? The mirror loops, but who taught your mind to hide knives in your own pockets? Next, we will investigate the secret sabotage that happens inside the mind and how your own thoughts seem to turn against you in the darkness. The mirror is crowded now. Self-reflection, once gentle, now slices with surgical precision. Every glance inward exposes another wound. Yet what unsettles you most is not the pain, but its mysterious source. You notice patterns, motives subverted, intentions twisted, hope turned into self-accusation. There is sabotage at work. Your thoughts, supposedly allies in your search for peace, act more like saboteurs. You track the logic of this betrayal. A reassuring thought is hijacked by doubt. A hopeful memory is stained with embarrassment. Plans for tomorrow are infiltrated by visions of failure. Every corner of your mental world is monitored, manipulated, undermined. You sense a hidden program running in the background, recoding your intentions, feeding you the opposite of what you seek. You begin to ask yourself who or what is responsible. Is it some learned voice, absorbed from the past? An ancient anxiety, running scripts first written decades ago? The answer never quite comes into focus. The sabotage is subtle, silent, almost impersonal. Your mind, the architect of your achievements, has weaponized itself against you. You scan for the origin of the betrayal. It does not announce itself as enemy action. It disguises itself as your own logic, your own best judgment. A single doubt, left unchecked, breeds more. An innocent question becomes an inquisition. The gentle reminder turns into a blaring siren. The mind, left alone in the dark, invents dangers to justify its vigilance. Each time you try to reason your way out, the sabotage adapts. It learns your strategies, preempts your attempts at reassurance. You try to focus on gratitude, and the mind reminds you of what's missing. You attempt distraction, and the mind drags your attention back to the very thing you fear. The system is both brilliant and merciless, a double agent with access to your most secret files. There is a chilling realization in this: your thoughts are not neutral observers. They have agency, momentum, even agendas you did not approve. The mind does not simply report on reality. It edits, distorts, manufactures evidence. You see, again and again, how your own thoughts betray you, stealing comfort, turning hope against itself, converting plans into traps. You wonder how this pattern began. Did you teach your mind to mistrust itself? Did years of vigilance and self-critique train your thoughts to find fault everywhere? The history is murky. The result is clear. The more you seek to protect yourself, the more your mind invents new threats. The self-defensive structures become self-defeating routines. The night is silent, but the sabotage is relentless. The mirror loops, but who taught your mind to hide knives in your own pockets? Each new attempt at peace is met with new forms of sabotage. Subtle, shapeless, unavoidable. The urge to outthink the trap only tightens it. You sense the next question looming, sharpened by the pain of your own internal betrayals. Your mind betrays you nightly, but every prediction you make for tomorrow. Did you just build the cell you'll wake up in? Next, we will step into the prediction prison, where each effort to see the future becomes another way to guarantee your captivity. The silent sabotage has left you raw, your defenses working against you, your own thoughts laced with threats. The mind, searching for safety, now doubles down on prediction. If you can only see tomorrow clearly enough, if you can anticipate every variable, every danger, every twist, maybe you can protect yourself from pain. The strategy feels logical, inevitable, So you plan, forecast, simulate. But each prediction, meant to be a shield, becomes a bar in your cell. The future is mapped, controlled, locked down. You imagine the words you'll say, the reactions you'll get, the obstacles you'll face. You picture failures before they happen, crafting plans to avoid them. The mind is now a fortune teller, but its predictions are narrow, pessimistic, deterministic. There is no space for surprise, no margin for hope. You notice the feedback loop forming. The more you predict, the more your behavior tomorrow conforms to your expectations tonight. Anxious about being tired? The anxiety itself guarantees you will be. Fearing embarrassment? The rehearsal makes you stiff, uncertain, primed for self-fulfilling prophecy. You see the future, and in seeing, you enact it. A deeper tension emerges. Prediction, meant to free you from the unknown, instead becomes the mechanism of your imprisonment. Each imagined scenario narrows your options, constrains your responses, fixes your fate. The mind is so focused on avoiding pain that it builds a prison of certainty, an algorithm that limits the scope of possibility. Every new prediction is another lock on the door. You sense the profound loss in this strategy. The present, once alive with possibility, is reduced to a script, written by anxiety, directed by fear, performed by a self trying to avoid the very dangers it can't stop imagining. The act of prediction, intended as liberation, guarantees stasis. The future is not discovered, but dictated, and the mind that wanted freedom finds only more loops. You try to resist, to leave space for uncertainty, but the script keeps running. Each attempt to let go is met with another scenario, another reason to rehearse disaster. You watch, powerless, as your mind builds the cell you'll wake up in. Each effort to see the future becomes another way to guarantee you cannot change it. A deep frustration tightens. The attempt to control outcomes has produced only paralysis. The script is written in your own hand, but you no longer recognize the author. The act of seeing is the act of building walls. The more you prepare, the more you surrender to inevitability. Your mind betrays you nightly, but every prediction you make for tomorrow. Did you just build the cell you'll wake up in? You built the prison, but who locked the door? Who stands guard while you sleep? Next, we will unravel the infinite regression behind your prediction, exploring the recursive trap of being both observer and jailer at once. You've built the cell, mapped the script, seen your predictions shape tomorrow. Now, the focus shifts to the paradox lurking behind every attempt at control. The observer loop. The mind, anxious to escape its own traps, begins to question itself. You are not just the prisoner and the architect, you are also the observer, the one tasked with monitoring the entire operation. But the deeper you look, the more layers you find, each one asking the same question. Who is watching? You track your thoughts, notice your predictions, critique your patterns. This act of monitoring, of stepping outside yourself to analyze the system, is supposed to offer relief, a way to spot errors and adjust course. But it doesn't stop there. Soon, you begin to observe the act of observation. Am I noticing my thoughts accurately? Is my self-reflection honest? Or just another form of self-deception? The observer splits, fractals into infinite regress. Each layer promises a vantage point of safety, a platform of objectivity. But every step back reveals another watcher. You are watching the mind watching itself, endlessly, like a camera pointed at a mirror. Each new observer layer creates new forms of anxiety, new responsibilities to monitor, new standards to meet. You seek freedom in perspective, but only find more complexity. A strange dizziness sets in, the sensation of being both inside and outside your own experience, trapped in a recursive hall of mirrors. The mind becomes a bureaucracy, staffed with countless inspectors, each reporting to a higher authority. You try to locate the real self, the original observer, but every attempt dissolves into another layer of metacognition. Who is at the top of this hierarchy? Who watches the watcher? This regression breeds exhaustion. There is no rest in the land of infinite analysis. Each new insight demands another. Each act of self-awareness spawns a new overseer. The process of observation, meant to bring clarity, breeds only more confusion. You realize you are both the subject and the object, the experiment and the scientist, the jailer and the guard and the watched. The paradox sharpens. The more vigilant you become, the more the system expands. Each solution multiplies, each answer breeds new questions. There is no fixed point, no stable self from which to observe. The recursive loop ensures that any attempt at total self-knowledge is doomed to spiral forever. You built the prison, but who locked the door? Who stands guard while you sleep? The more you look for the jailer, the more observers appear. Each one inspects, corrects, judges, but none can find the exit. You're left circling, each layer of awareness folding into the next, lost in the infinite regression of your own gaze. You search for an end, a last watcher who is finally free. But the recursion is absolute. The process loops, endless, relentless, feeding on your drive to understand and control. You are both lost and found in the act of watching, both trapped and trapping yourself. You search for your jailer, but what if the searchlight itself breeds monsters out of dust? Next, we will magnify the ordinary, examining how your most innocent observations can transform the tiniest problems into monsters that fill the room. The infinite regression has left you suspended in a hall of mirrors, exhausted from the endless scrutiny of your own mind. But the next paradox waits, quieter and even more insidious. You turn the searchlight onto the small things, those minor worries, passing discomforts, barely noticed aches and fleeting regrets. The intention is innocent, to clarify, to resolve, to diminish. But the effect is monstrous. You focus in. A minor irritation in your throat, a forgotten email, a moment of awkwardness from earlier in the day. Under the microscope of midnight, each small problem inflates. The more attention you pour into it, the more details you see. Imperfections, inconsistencies, possible consequences that spiral outward. The act of observation, meant to shrink the problem, causes it to swell beyond all proportion. You notice the mind's relentless capacity for amplification. Every flaw, every crack, every stray detail is magnified. What was a small concern becomes a looming catastrophe. What was a momentary mistake is replayed as an existential threat. The act of looking closely turns dust into monsters, uncertainty into crisis. This isn't just overthinking, it's transformation. You watch your worries mutate, absorbing every ounce of attention, feeding on your vigilance. You want to believe that analysis will lead to resolution, that if you can just see clearly enough, the problem will dissolve. But the very process of magnification brings new fears, new questions, new complications. The cycle is exhausting. The more you focus, the less manageable the problem becomes. The process of inspection breeds distortion. Your sense of reality bends around the lens of your scrutiny. What was manageable by daylight now seems vast and unsolvable in the night's silence. You begin to recognize the trap. The searchlight, once a tool for insight, now conjures monsters from dust. Your intention was to see clearly, to fix what is broken, to find peace through precision. But the act of searching transforms the landscape, turning molehills into mountains, shadows into giants. You see how the mind's microscope is double-edged. It sharpens perception but distorts proportion. The closer you look, the more the world warps. The act of magnifying becomes the act of creation, creating chaos, creating fear, creating the very obstacles you sought to erase. You search for your jailer, but what if the searchlight itself breeds monsters out of dust? You face your monsters, but who taught you to ask for permission before closing your eyes? Next, we will confront the strange law that governs your right to rest, and how seeking approval becomes another barrier to peace. The monsters bred from dust by the searchlight of your own mind loom large now, each one a product of hyper-focused vigilance. Yet, in the aftermath of this creation, a subtler but no less powerful constraint reveals itself. You sense it in the way your body remains rigid, your mind alert, even when exhaustion presses down on every nerve. The question surfaces, sharp and unwelcome. Who decided you need permission to rest? You notice yourself waiting for some invisible signal, a sense of completion, of safety, of approval that never comes. You scan your environment for cues, your body for readiness, your mind for validation. Is it okay to stop thinking now? Is it safe to close your eyes? The desire for rest is suddenly entangled with the need for consent from an authority you can't name. You trace this law back through memories, through all the times you were told to finish your work, to be strong, to stay vigilant, to earn your break. The message is subtle but insistent. Rest is not your default state. It's a privilege to be granted only after all debts are paid. But the debts never clear. The unfinished business of the day, the unresolved worries of the mind, the background noise of unspoken expectations. They all pile up, forming an invisible barrier between you and sleep. You feel the weight of rules you never agreed to. The mind runs through checklists, insists on final reviews, seeks one last guarantee that nothing will be missed, that all danger has been averted. You want to close your eyes, but your thoughts demand you keep them open just a little longer. You scan for missed cues, hidden threats, things left undone. A quiet resentment rises. Who is this inner authority? Who assigned them the power to dictate your right to rest? You cannot find a face, only a set of rules, etched into your routines, drilled into your thinking, enforced by a committee of invisible critics. The need for permission has been embedded so deeply that it's hard to distinguish from your own will. You begin to see the consequences of this law. Each night, rest is withheld not by circumstance but by a belief system. The possibility of relaxation is sabotaged by the requirement for completion, the need for perfect closure, the expectation of constant readiness. You are denied rest by a voice that never tires, a judge who never adjourns the court. The paradox stings. The harder you try to earn rest, the more you postpone it. Permission is always just out of reach, a goalpost that moves with every step you take. The act of seeking approval becomes a new task, a fresh reason to stay awake. The very desire to rest ensures you will never feel quite ready to receive it. You face your monsters, but who taught you to ask for permission before closing your eyes? You beg for permission, but when you seize control, why do your dreams shatter into jagged, useless glass? Next, we will explore the consequences of taking control and how the act of forcing rest can fracture your dreams rather than fulfill them. The chase for permission has left you hungry for control, desperate to reclaim what seems rightfully yours. The power to rest, the ability to dream. But as the night wears on, another contradiction surfaces. When you finally try to seize your own peace, to take sleep by force, to dictate the terms of your dreams, something unexpected happens. The dream distorts, fractures, becomes something brittle and strange. You notice the signs. The moment you try to orchestrate the content of your dreams, they slip away or morph into nightmares. You lay out plans for relaxation, structure your thoughts, demand that the mind follow a script of serenity. Instead, your dreams rebel. Scenes stutter, memories melt, desires dissolve into anxiety. The act of seizing control shatters the fragile fabric of rest. You try to guide the mind gently, coaxing it towards sleep with rituals and routines. But each ritual becomes a test. Did you perform it correctly? Did you think the right thoughts? Did you relax in the correct order? The more you try to control the outcome, the more your mind resists, producing dreams as jagged and scattered as broken glass. You sense the feedback loop intensifying. The need for control, once a tool for safety, now breeds tension. Every attempt to design the perfect dream becomes an invitation for chaos. You crave peace, but your plans breed turbulence. The act of waking up within the dream, of attempting to steer it consciously, only brings confusion, not clarity. A deeper truth emerges. Control and surrender cannot coexist. The very act of trying to command your dreams ensures their distortion. The mind, sensitive to force, responds by breaking the script, twisting intentions into paradoxes. Your attempts to control become the source of the chaos you wanted to escape. You try to return to a state of passivity, to allow the dream to unfold without interference. But now, the awareness of your own attempts at control lingers in the background, like a crack in the glass. You cannot unknow the desire to manage your dreams, and so the distortion persists. Each moment of relaxation is shadowed by the memory of effort. The paradox is complete. The pursuit of control over your dreams produces only further loss of control. You are left with fragments, half-remembered images, scenes that slip away as soon as you reach for them. The more you try to shape your rest, the more it shatters into jagged, useless glass. You beg for permission, but when you seize control, why do your dreams shatter into jagged, useless glass? You tried to seize your dreams, but when you let go, why does it feel like falling through the floor of your own life? Next, we will explore the terrifying paradox of letting go, where surrender feels less like relief and more like an endless descent. You have shattered your dreams trying to control them. The mind recoils from its own attempts at dominance. Now a new paradox enters the room, quiet but bottomless. If seizing control breaks the fragile machinery of rest, perhaps the answer lies in surrender. But as you move toward letting go, a new fear takes shape. A sensation not of relief, but of falling, of losing everything that holds you together. You sense the stakes rising as you consider surrender. The impulse to relax, to yield, is met with terror, as if letting go means dropping through the floor of your own life. The body resists, tensing further as you try to soften. The mind rebels, offering last-minute bargains. Just one more thought, one more plan, one more attempt to manage the chaos before you finally let go. But letting go remains elusive. Each approach is sabotaged by a flash of panic, a sense that everything you value, identity, safety, purpose, will vanish if you loosen your grip. You notice the many disguises of resistance. Surrender is framed as laziness, as failure, as defeat. The mind, conditioned to fight for control, interprets release as annihilation. The paradox grows sharper. What you most desire is what you fear most to accept. You sense the old scripts playing in the background, warning that relaxation is weakness, that vigilance is survival. You scan your thoughts, searching for the source of this terror. Is it the loss of certainty, the disappearance of boundaries, the fear that letting go means dropping into an endless abyss, never to return? Each answer only deepens the mystery. The self that clings so tightly cannot imagine itself surviving the plunge. You feel yourself teetering at the edge, caught between effort and surrender. Every attempt to let go is interrupted by the very desire to let go, an effort that sabotages itself. You are both the hand releasing and the hand holding on. The mind insists on being both actor and observer, never allowing the moment of release to fully arrive. The sensation is dizzying. You try to imagine what true surrender might feel like. The images are of falling, of erasure, of a blank space where once there was form. The self, so carefully constructed, seems to hover over a void, terrified of what might happen if it ceases to try. Letting go is not gentle. It is a confrontation with emptiness, a vertigo of the soul. You search for examples, but the paradox persists. The closer you come to surrender, the more fragile it becomes. Even the smallest attempt to guide the process, let go now, becomes another effort, another loop, another subtle form of holding on. The mind will not allow itself to disappear. You tried to seize your dreams, but when you let go, why does it feel like falling through the floor of your own life? You've tasted surrender, but if your thoughts vanish, is anyone left behind to turn out the lights? Next, we will face the most unnerving question of all. If the mind can let go, does anything remain? Or does the self dissolve entirely, leaving behind only the silence of the unthinking void? The terror of surrender lingers in your bones. Each time you approach letting go, the ground feels unstable beneath you. Now, a deeper riddle sharpens its edge. If all your plans, worries, judgments, and memories vanish, if the thoughts that have filled your nights finally fade, who or what remains? The identity rift splits wide, and you peer into the gap. You search for yourself in the absence of thought, scanning the silence for some trace of identity. Without your routines, your obsessions, your internal dialogues, what are you? The familiar voice is silent, the usual anxiety's gone. What's left behind feels ghostly, insubstantial, and yet impossibly vast. A deep discomfort stirs. For so long, the mind has been a fortress, built of words, decisions, calculations, rehearsals. Now, with the machinery stilled, the boundaries of self become porous. You sense the possibility of dissolving into the background, becoming anonymous, unguarded, undefined. Is this peace or oblivion? You notice your instinctive reaction. The return of even a single thought feels like rescue, a reassurance that the self persists, that identity has not been lost. Yet the paradox emerges again. The very thing that kept you trapped, the endless thinking, the looping narratives, now seems essential for your existence. The mind equates survival with activity, being with doing, self with story. You reflect on the fear that silence might be erasure, that in the absence of mental noise, there is nothing left to call me. The old worries seem preferable to this uncertainty. You would rather be anxious than non-existent, troubled than vanished. The identity rift feels infinite. You search for evidence that you exist outside your thoughts, but the proof is always fleeting. A sensation, a breath, a moment of awareness with no words attached. These moments are fragile, hard to trust. The urge to fill the silence is overwhelming. You become aware of the mind's relentless refusal to accept its own disappearance. Even the wish for peace becomes a form of resistance, a declaration that something must survive the plunge. The act of letting go is always interrupted by the instinct to return, to reassert, to rebuild the old walls. The paradox remains. The self longs for release, but cannot imagine surviving it. You've tasted surrender. But if your thoughts vanish, is anyone left behind to turn out the lights? You've vanished for a moment. But why do your shadows return, louder, arguing, refusing to be ignored? Next, we will enter the space where, even in the silence, the mind is not empty. Shadows rise up to fill the void, bringing with them new questions and the next stage of the midnight struggle. The silence after surrender is not empty. Even as thoughts quiet, a new disturbance emerges, shadows rising to fill the void. You realize that fear is never truly erased. It waits in the margins, ready to reclaim your attention the moment vigilance fades. These are not passive shadows. They speak, they challenge, they refuse to be silenced. The absence of ordinary thought only gives them more room to move. You become aware of their voices, familiar, yet distorted, like echoes heard from another room. The fears question your relief. Are you sure you can rest? Are you sure it's safe to let go? Each time you attempt to settle into peace, these shadows raise objections. They rehearse old arguments, summon new doubts, draw you into dialogue against your will. You notice that these fears do not whisper, they argue. They are relentless debaters, demanding your attention, refusing to be dismissed. Each fear crafts a case for itself, supplying evidence, reciting histories, building scenarios where the risks are real and the outcomes dire. The dialogue grows heated, sometimes absurd, but always persuasive. The more you try to turn away, the louder the shadows grow. You question the source of their energy. Why are your fears so insistent, so articulate, so invested in your unrest? The answer slips away, but their persistence cannot be ignored. You sense that fear, in the absence of thought, claims the spotlight by default. It is an engine with its own fuel, its own logic, its own need for survival. You reflect on the shape these arguments take. Sometimes the fears are specific, concrete dangers, unfinished business, memories of mistakes. Sometimes they are vague, a sense of impending loss, a suspicion that you have forgotten something important, an unnamed anxiety humming in the dark. The specifics matter less than the force of their conviction. The paradox grows. The quieter you try to become, the more intensely your shadows demand an audience. You've vanished for a moment, but why do your shadows return, louder, arguing, refusing to be ignored? The very act of seeking peace becomes the catalyst for unrest, the silence a stage for fear's performance. You begin to see that this shadow dialogue is not a malfunction, but a feature of the midnight mind. When the self quiets, the unconscious rises. Old anxieties, unfinished stories, unresolved wounds. The mind cannot be emptied. The shadows always find a way in. You've vanished for a moment, but why do your shadows return, louder, arguing, refusing to be ignored? You argue with your shadows, but why does meaning collapse just when you need it most? Next, we will plunge into the meltdown of meaning itself and discover how, in the middle of the night, even the most basic purpose seems to dissolve. Yet the pain remains as sharp as ever. The shadow dialogue leaves you weary. The mind, battered by arguments with its own fears, now arrives at a kind of existential collapse. It's as if, in the darkness, meaning itself evaporates. The day's ambitions, beliefs, explanations all lose their grip. You find yourself adrift, staring at the ceiling, wondering why any of it should matter. Yet, strangely, the emptiness does not bring relief. It brings pain, raw, inexplicable, and total. You sense the absence of meaning as a physical weight. The stories you told yourself all day now ring hollow. The future you planned no longer feels real. Old victories and losses blend into the same gray blur. You are not just tired, you are unmoored, disconnected from the why of everything you do. You question this collapse. If nothing matters, why does it hurt so much? Shouldn't the absence of purpose be a relief, a freedom from expectation? Yet the freedom feels like drowning, not flying. The body aches, the heart aches, the mind contracts around a core of emptiness that burns instead of soothes. You try to construct meaning, to summon some narrative that will restore the sense of order, but the old scripts don't fit. You see through the stories, the justifications, the rationalizations. They seem childish in the face of the night's silence. The usual reassurances fall flat. The meaning meltdown is complete. You are left with only the fact of suffering. You become aware that pain persists even in the absence of meaning. The mind does not need a reason to hurt. It needs only the space and the silence to notice itself. The loss of purpose becomes its own kind of torment, a vacuum that pulls every other discomfort into its orbit. The pain sharpens, the emptiness grows heavier. You reflect on the strange persistence of suffering. Even as the mind deconstructs itself, dismisses its stories, abandons its ambitions, the ache remains. The search for reason intensifies the pain, as if the act of asking why ensures you will never find an answer. Meaning, when it melts away, leaves behind only the residue of longing. You argue with your shadows, but why does meaning collapse just when you need it most? Meaning melts away, but every night the same monsters greet you. What unbreakable loop have you stepped into? Next, we will enter the cycle of recurring nightmares and confront the question of why the monsters never seem to leave, no matter how many times you face them. The meaning meltdown has left you raw, emptied of purpose but not of pain. In this state of suspension, the next disturbance rises, predictable as the phases of the moon, the return of the nightmare. It is not always the same image or the same story, but the sensation is identical, the sense of being pursued by something ancient, persistent, unkillable. No matter what you conquer by daylight, the monsters return at night, familiar as your own shadow. You notice the pattern with a growing sense of unease. Nightmares do not obey logic or linearity. They leap across years and memories, stitching together fragments of the past and anxieties about the future. Sometimes they arrive with the force of terror. Other times, as quiet, insidious dread. You try to reason with them, to outsmart them, but they always find a new way in. A loophole in your defenses, a crack in your routines. You become aware that the monsters change shape, but not substance. One night they wear the face of failure, another night the face of loss, another night the face of isolation. Yet each time you face them, defeat them, reason with them, the cycle resets. You wake up, daylight arrives, and for a while you feel free. But night returns, and the same creatures wait for you in the darkness, patient and unchanged. You wonder why your efforts to resolve these nightmares never last. You have analyzed them, outlasted them, ignored them, confronted them. But nothing breaks the cycle. The recurrence is absolute, an error written into the code of your mind. Each night, the monsters reappear, sometimes larger, sometimes subtler, always inevitable. You scan for the reason behind their persistence. Is it unfinished business, or simply the mind's way of holding onto unresolved wounds? Is there a flaw in the system, a part of you programmed to replay these patterns forever? The answer never comes. The recurrence itself becomes the riddle, the unbreakable loop that traps you in the same struggle, again and again. The paradox is cruel. You grow, change, survive, and yet the nightmares do not yield. You defeat them only to find them waiting in the next room, the next night, the next thought. Meaning melts away, but every night the same monsters greet you. What unbreakable loop have you stepped into? You survive nightmare after nightmare, but does the sunrise promise freedom, or just another, brighter prison? Next, we will stand at the edge of morning and question whether making it through the darkness ever truly brings you the clean slate you crave. The monsters have stalked you through the corridors of every night. Somehow, you've made it through again. The sun is rising. The light changes. There's a moment of hope. A pause as you wonder if the nightmare cycle is finally broken, if today will be different. But a sharper question cuts through the glow. Does surviving the night guarantee a new beginning? Or is it only a rehearsal for the next act of the same story? You feel the exhaustion in your bones. The adrenaline from survival begins to fade, replaced by a hollow calm. The world looks washed clean, but the stains linger just beneath the surface. You scan for signs of renewal, for the evidence of a fresh start. But the sense of freedom is brittle, uncertain. The mind replays fragments of the night's struggles, clinging to them like clues from a crime scene. You notice that the habits you carried through the night are already waiting to follow you into the day. The unfinished thoughts, the old anxieties, the habitual doubts, they do not dissolve with the morning light. Instead, they adapt, don new disguises, become background static as you move through your routine. You survived, but survival does not mean release. The cycle is paused, not broken. A subtle resentment grows. The world expects you to be renewed by morning, to rise with new energy, new optimism. But the residue of the night is sticky, and your sense of self is frayed. You recognize the danger of false dawn, the seductive illusion that each new day wipes the slate clean. In reality, the loops are continuous. The mind that braved the darkness is the same mind that meets the light. You question whether freedom is possible, or if the sunrise is just another layer of the loop, a brighter prison, a new stage for the old patterns. The monsters may retreat, but they are never vanquished. You survive the night, but the cost is a growing fatigue, a sense of unfinished business haunting your every step. The paradox is clear. Surviving is not the same as beginning anew. The day promises renewal, but delivers repetition. You are caught between hope and skepticism, searching for an exit that never appears. You survive nightmare after nightmare, but does the sunrise promise freedom, or just another, brighter prison? You chase the dawn, but what becomes of the unresolved music you carried through the night? Next, we will follow the melody of unfinished thoughts into the fragile hours of morning, confronting the persistent questions and unresolved tensions that refuse to fade. The false dawn has revealed its own deception. The night's survival offers no erasure, only transition. The light is changing, the world awakening, but the unresolved music of your mind persists. There are notes left hanging in the air, questions without answers, fears unspoken, fragments of dreams that faded before they could end. The day begins, but the melody continues, unfinished and unresolved. You sense these fragments all around you. They linger in the silence between conversations, in the pauses before decisions, in the flicker of attention when you try to focus on something new. The thoughts you left behind do not disappear. They become the background score to everything that follows. You recognize the motifs, the half-formed plans, the recycled worries, the pieces of yourself that never quite found a resolution. You try to ignore them, to drown them out with routine and noise, but the unfinished symphony insists on being heard. Sometimes it's a single, repeating phrase, a regret looping through your head, a desire never fully named. Other times it's a jumble of discordant melodies, unresolved chords clashing beneath the surface. The more you try to force closure, the louder the music grows. You scan your day for traces of these abandoned thoughts. They shape your mood, color your responses, influence the choices you make without your awareness. The mind's soundtrack is never silent. It is a symphony of what is missing, a rehearsal for scenes that never play out. You find yourself haunted by these echoes, drawn back to the loops you thought you had escaped. A subtle anxiety follows. What becomes of the thoughts you leave behind? Do they accumulate, waiting for their moment to return? Do they shape you in ways you cannot see, directing your life from the shadows? The questions remain unanswered, multiplying in the spaces you can't control. The paradox deepens. Closure is a myth. The unfinished business of the night follows you into the day, and the symphony never ends. Each attempt to resolve, to finish, to silence the music only produces new variations, new themes, new harmonies of doubt and longing. You realize that being human means living inside an unfinished composition, never fully resolved, always waiting for the next note. You chase the dawn, but what becomes of the unresolved music you carried through the night? Now that you've mapped every shadow and every glitch, what if the only way out is to leave some doors unanswered forever? Next, we will arrive at the edge of the puzzle, confronting the possibility that true escape does not come from solving every mystery, but from accepting the beauty and terror of what remains unfinished. The symphony lingers, restless, unresolved. You find yourself at the border of understanding. Every question asked, every paradox explored, every loop acknowledged but never closed. The search for progress has defined your journey, driven you through night and day, shadow and dawn. But now a new, more radical idea emerges from the silence. What if the only way out is through surrender to the unfinished? You scan your mind for the pieces you've gathered. Fragments of thought, echoes of fear, unanswered riddles, dreams abandoned before they could resolve. The desire for completion is strong, a longing for certainty, for clarity, for an end to the searching. Yet every attempt to close the puzzle has only deepened its complexity, revealing new mysteries with each answer. You realize that progress, as you imagined it, was always a mirage. The pursuit of finality has left you exhausted, circling the same questions, rehearsing the same solutions. The only way forward now is to embrace the unfinished, to find meaning not in closure, but in the willingness to stay open. The puzzle will never be solved, and that, somehow, is its own kind of freedom. You reflect on what this means for your nights and days, your dreams and fears. If the loops never close, perhaps the task is not to finish, but to witness. To see the shadows, to hear the echoes, to let the music play on without demanding a final note. The mind's complexity is not a flaw, but a feature, the sign of a system alive, curious, and forever becoming. You sense the paradox at its sharpest now. The attempt to escape the puzzle was the trap. The act of pausing, accepting, allowing yourself to not know. This is the escape the quantum world whispers about. Progress, in its deepest form, is not resolution, but transformation. The willingness to keep asking, to keep listening, to keep living with the doors open. You stand at the threshold, no longer desperate for the next answer, no longer haunted by the need for perfect peace. The questions remain, but their weight is different. They are the proof that you are awake, alive, entangled with the mysteries of your own existence. Now that you've mapped every shadow and every glitch, what if the only way out is to leave some doors unanswered forever? The symphony plays on. The puzzle remains unsolved. The escape is not in finishing, but in finally allowing yourself to live, inside the loop, among the shadows, with the music still unfinished. You stand at the edge of the puzzle, surrounded by the scattered pieces of your nights, the fragments of thought, the loops of memory, the shadows that argued, the music that refused to resolve. You have mapped every contradiction, faced every paradox, and questioned every law that governs your midnight mind. Each chapter was a door, and each door led to more questions. There was always one more lock, one more echo, one more unfinished line of code. Now, the final paradox reveals itself. What if the only true escape is to stop searching for escape? The rules of your insomnia were never static. They changed every time you tried to master them. The more you sought closure, the more you discovered new beginnings. The more you demanded certainty, the more the universe delivered ambiguity. You recognized the quantum signature in all of it, the strangeness that lies at the foundation of reality itself. In the quantum world, the act of watching changes what is seen. The harder you try to pin down a particle, the more uncertain its position becomes. Progress is not a line you cross, but a field you wander, never able to map it in full. The rules of midnight are not errors. They are echoes of the universe's own complexity. The mind, like the quantum, cannot be reduced to simple binaries, cannot be forced to run a perfect algorithm. Every answer only unlocks another layer. Every insight opens another mystery. The beauty and the agony is that the puzzle is infinite. You feel the pull of unfinished thoughts, the melody still unresolved, the shadows waiting in the wings. Yet something new arises, a faint, electric freedom. If there will always be another question, perhaps the point is not to finish, but to continue. To live as the question, not as the answer. You witness yourself at this threshold. Not broken, not stuck, not wrong for circling your own mind. Every attempt to solve insomnia, every night spent mapping its rules, was another step into the strangeness of being alive. The loops, the recursions, the monsters, they were not obstacles to escape, but companions for the journey. The glitch in the system is the system. The unfinished puzzle is the reality. You look back at the midnight loop and see it now as a quantum phenomenon, a process that freezes when watched, that thaws when allowed to move, that offers no final comfort but endless possibility. The only escape is in acceptance, in the willingness to let some doors remain unopened, to let some echoes fade, to let the unfinished symphony play on. What if progress means accepting you'll never finish the puzzle? The question does not close the book, but blows it open. Your mind remains wild, complex, unresolved. The universe within you is not a prison, but a landscape, strange, shimmering, always unfinished. The quantum escape is not an ending, but an invitation. To live with the questions, to walk the edge of every paradox, to rest, not in certainty, but in wonder.